Welcome everyone. Today we're going to continue with part 6 of the Ogre of Aptos. Now in 1972, Ed had started driving around in his car. He wasn't working because of his wreck, and at this point in time he was beginning to pick up hitchhikers. And he would describe them not so much picking up the hitchhikers, but having these urges and these dark desires, and he would refer to them as these little zapples. He said that every single time, he would get closer and closer to getting to a certain point. He would say that one time he would pick them up and he would just get this thought. And then the next time he had picked up a hitchhiker, he would sit there and there would be a gun in his driver's side compartment, getting closer and closer to this dark fantasy that he had had. Now, on May 7th, 1972, he had picked up 2 college students who were hitchhiking, Mary Ann Pesh and Anita Lachessa. And they were actually hitchhiking and trying to go into a college that was about an hour away. He had drove them and went to a secluded location. And when he had got to that secluded location, at that point, he had had a pocket knife with him. And he had also had a pair of handcuffs. And he had asked one girl to get out. And when he had done this, he had sat there and put her in the trunk. And while this was going on, he had the other girl handcuffed to the car. And when this was going on, he proceeded to try and murder one of them. And he did it with a pocket knife. He would later say that the knife was not very sturdy enough because it wasn't going through to the clothing and everything. After he had actually killed her, he had put her in the trunk and went to the back side of the car where the other girl was handcuffed. And he would sit there and say, as he was trying to remove the handcuffs, the back of his hand would actually sit there and graze her breast. And at that point, he said that he was embarrassed, and he sat there and said that he was sorry. And he proceeded to sit there and stab her in the car. After he was done murdering both girls, he would sit there and put them in the trunk and take them to the apartment. It was at this point that he would take the bodies up there and he would remove both of their heads, and he would perform irrematio on both of the decapitated heads. And after he was done doing that, he would sit there and violate their bodies. After he was done doing that, he had dumped one over a cliff and the other one at an undisclosed location. Some have actually said that he would talk about in interviews where he would constantly come back to the scene of the crime and would pleasure himself. And he would also go to where he had buried the first body and sit there and talk to the body where he buried it as if it was a romantic interest. On September 14th, 1972, he had actually picked up a 15-year-old hitchhiker at Keuku, who was actually looking for a ride for a dance class that her mother had actually gotten her in. And when he had taken her, he had took her up to a secluded place. And at that point, he had sat there and tried to strangle her. And it did not kill her at that point, and he performed an assault on her as well and put her in the trunk. He would later sit there and notice her rasp breathing, and he would actually finish killing her. After he had put her in the trunk, he would sit there and drive off to a bar, and he would sit there and have a few drinks. He would later say that after drinking, he would sit there and go to his car and open the trunk, and in his words, admire his catch like a fisherman. When he went back to his apartment, he again decapitated her, performed irrematio on her decapitated head, and violated her more. And it was at that point that he had also disposed of the body. Her mother would actually put out missing posters that night, and they would sit there and find the body not long afterwards. They would also sit there and start telling girls around the colleges to stop taking rides from people that were not from the college.